Welcome to Zoom with Czarny. I'm Dustin Czarny, Democratic Elections Commissioner for Onondaga County. This is my interview show, and I'm interviewing Alexander Marion, the newly elected Syracuse City Auditor. We talk about his first 100 days in office, as well as some things he's hoping to continue to do in the Syracuse City Auditor position. This is coming to you a day late. Usually I release these on Fridays now, but today's Saturday. And why am I releasing it on Saturday? Is because I wanted to get a budget update from the New York State on what we're seeing in the New York State budget for elections statewide. They didn't finish up their final bill drafting until Saturday morning. So this is Saturday afternoon, and I'm recording this now. I wanted to give you a quick update. I'll go more into this in my commissioner in a car on Tuesday, but there is a lot of good stuff in the New York State budget that they are passing today for local boards of elections. There's $14.7 million for poll book replacements. You may think, oh, we just got these electronic poll books. Why do we need to replace them already? Well, actually, we got them in 2019. That's 5 years ago. Think of how many new phones you've had in that time period. When you go to electronic devices, the iOS updates, especially with Apple devices, is what provides the security to them. And certain devices are no longer going to be supported by new iOS starting next year, and they need to be replaced so we can keep them secure and tamper-proof. There's also $7.7 million in absentee ballot. Well, actually, it's called the postage grant because it's for all of our mail balloting options now: absentee, early voting by mail. This is something that New York State put in the budget a couple of years ago, saying it was going to be an annual thing. It increased it a little bit this year because it's a presidential year and also a new early voting by mail option. So this is something that really helps cut down the costs for local boards of elections, that New York State picks up a lot of this, a lot of the cost of our postage and also the labor and service costs for sending out these types of ballots. And then there was a $5 million in direct aid to local boards of elections. It's what's called aid to localities. This will offset temporary worker costs that will help us service especially the general election this year for the November elections. And finally, there was a few program items. There was $114 million for the public campaign finance program. That's the program I've talked about the last couple of Zoom with Czarnys. That's the small donor matching program that is trying to take big money out of politics by encouraging small in-district donors and have state matching funds for that. It's a fully funded program. The advocates are very happy about that. There's also the John Flatteau New York database run by the New York State Board of Elections. This is a database repository. There's about $2.5 million put to that to start the work on putting this together. That program won't start until April 1st of 2026, but it will get working on it. It takes a couple of years for these kind of big overall programs to have the framework in place and have the people in place to be able to put it together. But this could be a really great thing for data nerds throughout the state, and also transparency, because all the election data will be in one place starting we believe around 2026. So that's a big news. So lots of good stuff in the New York State budget. It looks like it's finally done, and we will see where that goes. But please stick around for my interview with Alexander Marion, the Syracuse City Auditor, and he talks about his first 100 days in office, the vision for an activist auditor, and what it can do for the city of Syracuse. Enjoy. And we're back, and I'm very happy to have my good friend, Alexander Marion. He is now the new city auditor of the city of Syracuse, the top Democrat in the city of Syracuse. Alexander, welcome to Zoom with Czarny.
Thank you so much, Dustin. It is a pleasure to be here.
Well, Alexander, you and I go back to the Minor days. You were in Stephanie Minor's central office, and I was working down at the parking ticket bureau, probably causing a lot of headaches for you at the central office until I moved over to the elections commissioner. So we're old friends. And then you went on to the New York State Legislature working under Senator Gianaris. And I got to know you even better through that office. So I'm so happy that you've come back home to Syracuse. You were elected Syracuse City Auditor last year after winning a primary and then winning in the general election. But I wanted to have you on because I didn't get to have you on last year because you didn't have a Republican opponent. So I had a lot of interviews last year. I couldn't get you on, but I knew I wanted to get you on, and you just celebrated your 100 days. So Alexander, let's focus on the election last year. What
Yeah.
was it like to come back home to Syracuse and campaign and be the candidate this time?
Well, first of all, Dustin, thank you for having me on. It is such a pleasure to be here. I'm really excited to be talking to you today in office. First, I just want to lead off by expressing my condolences to the families of the two law enforcement officers that were killed in Syracuse. That's kind of weighing heavily on all of us in city government right now, but I think that reflects the challenges that we have in local government. You never know what the next phone call is going to be. You never know what the next challenge is going to be. You never know what the next situation is going to be. And it really reminds you that every single day that goes by, you have to be prepared for the absolutely unpredictable, the best, the worst, the in between. Whether it's a tragedy like this, infrastructure falling apart, bridges falling down, water mains breaking, financial issues, you have to always be prepared. And that's something I find really interesting about the role as city auditor. And that's what attracted me to running for this job in the first place. You mentioned my history with Mayor Minor and Senator Gianaris. My career has been, in local and state government for a long time. And I have seen almost every single issue that comes before government. I've seen almost every single challenge and emergency and situation you can imagine, from collapsing nonsense economic development mega deals to public safety to immigration, infrastructure, you name it. I've been there. I've lived through it in some form or another. And what I loved about the role of city auditor is it's a job for a self-starter. It's a position where you can really choose when you weigh in. You make your own priorities. You're able to decide how you weigh in and how you take on projects. And I'm really excited for the opportunity. We've already started doing it in my first 100 days, but I think we'll be doing this for quite a while to come. You really have the opportunity to shape the conversation around policy and take a little bit of a removed view and focus on new challenges going forward and offering good perspective. I came back, so I'm a Central New York native, grew up in Camillus, worked in the minor administration. After the minor administration, went to New York City to work for Senator Gianaris, which was an incredible experience, and I learned something new every day. And during the pandemic, came back to Syracuse for a little more space, and it stuck. And when the opportunity to run last year came, I gave it a great deal of thought, and I said, what's the best? I've decided, Syracuse is where I want to be. It's the community I want to be part of. What's the best way to shape that and serve that? And I thought, putting my diverse skills and experiences to work as city auditor, being kind of the in-house policy wonk at City Hall, is a great way to try to make the community I love and call home and hope to always call home a better place.
Yeah, and it's funny because I know that Syracuse gets a little bit of a bad rep, and especially among younger professionals. And but I found that so many people leave and then come back because they're drawn back to this area. I grew up here. I left. I came back. I see this a lot, and I'm so excited to find somebody who's younger than me, especially, but that are, it's coming back and taking the opportunity to serve. And one of the things that I found so remarkable about your campaign and also your first, 100 days is that you took this, what could be seen as a drab job, auditor, right? I mean, it's not, people are like, well, what are you going to do? Why do you want to be auditor? Why don't you want to be mayor? Why don't you want to be, a common counselor? But you're turning it into something different. I'd love to hear your vision on what you think the Syracuse auditor could be and what you're doing to change it.
Oh, absolutely. And what I love about the job is when you read the requirements for it in the charter, there aren't a lot of things built in. We're required to do a regular report on the city's cash and investments, some regular reporting on permits and license fees. There's a few laws that we have to review per those statutes, the city's ban the box ordinance, the city's living wage ordinance. But beyond that, it is left to the auditor's desires and priorities to take on projects to improve municipal administration. I'm quoting there. You know, it my vision for the job is to look beyond just the bottom line dollars and cents. Obviously, that is very important. That's a very big part of it. But what I'm there to do is provide oversight of the decisions the city is making today, insight into the decisions the city needs to make tomorrow, and advocate for the solutions and results we all need. When we know there's a good idea, when we know there's a priority, I want to be there fighting for that priority. I've already started doing some of that work, advocating before the federal government for additional funding for our SurgeLink program, which is the city's internet service provider, which provides subsidized internet service to some of the poorest neighborhoods in the city of Syracuse. Federal funding for that program ran out this month. We're backfilling it right now with some dollars from the American Rescue Plan, and we're continuing to look for new ways to get the federal government to reauthorize the program going forward. I've been doing this on the state level, advocating for more state aid to municipalities, including Syracuse, fighting for good cause eviction legislation to keep people in the homes they know and love. And I think all of this comes down to the idea that the city auditor's job here in Syracuse is to make sure that we're getting the most value for our limited resources. Yes, that's our tax dollars, but that also means, our human capital, our infrastructure, our facilities, our public space. How do we get the most value in our community? And that's what I wake up and I'm so excited to do every single day.
Well, don't forget, one of my favorite duties of the Syracuse City Auditor is forming the Syracuse Independent Redistricting Commission, the first east of the Mississippi. So, but you know what? You don't have to worry about that until 2030. So, at the end of your very successful second term, we'll be talking about that, I'm sure.
Knock on wood.
Knock on wood. But so you're you came home, you ran, you won. You also were incredibly instrumental in helping a lot of other campaigns along the way. One of the things I really admired about the way you ran your campaign is that you could have, hung it up after June and just said, well, I don't have a Republican opponent, it's a Democratic city, there's no writing campaign, I'm gonna just coast on my laurels. But you went out there and you were instrumental in helping Emily Essie running for county clerk. And I know that you put some time in some other campaigns. So, you're not just, there for yourself. And what was it like to work with those other campaigns? And are those relationships still formed that you're going to be able to work together now that you're all in government together?
Absolutely. You know, what I believe firmly about governing is that we don't do it alone. You can't do it alone. I can't be city auditor by myself. I'm not in a vacuum. The office is not off on an island somewhere. I'm on the fourth floor of City Hall, right in downtown Syracuse. I have to work with the mayor. I have to work with the councilors. I have to work with other levels of government every single day. And I think it's so important to be invested and engaged across levels of government. And the way I know how to do that is through the political process. We have such great candidates who ran last year in Onondaga County. Emily Essie is fantastic. Our two new family court judges, Joe Zavalia and Diane Darwish-Plumley. We're really excited. We're thrilled we got Marty Masterpole reelected. He's already been a tremendous asset and resource and mentor to me, having been the former city auditor and now serving as county comptroller. And we've been working with so many great folks that I am just really, really excited to have the chance to help them get over the finish line and now work together in ways that make sense. Marty Masterpole and I have already talked about doing some joint projects and working on some shared initiatives. Emily Essie and I are, already comparing notes for different ways that we can, work on planning issues, licensing issues, permitting issues, because I have to review all of those. Her office is where a lot of that data lives. So we've already had some of those conversations. And, for me, it was a real pleasure helping folks with a phenomenal slate of candidates last fall running. And it's never going to be enough to just do this for myself. Politics isn't about it's about we. It's about moving people forward together. And if I win an election, that's not good enough. I need to help get other people over the finish line too. I think that's a basic responsibility of anyone in elected office. You have to help get everyone else where they need to be. So you have allies and, a team there that can govern effectively. The great Bernie Sanders quote,
Yes,
not me, us.
that's right. That's right. We can counter with the Hillary quote of "stronger together," but we're not going to go down 2016 anymore. But
I have to go somewhere.
yeah, I still have PTSD. But I really love that. And by the way, you're kind of sandwiched in my Zoom with Czarny, talking to elected officials. Last week I talked with Marty. Next week I'm talking with Emily. So
Great.
you're kind of the cream of the Oreo here. You're right in there. So but it is nice to see these new faces that are in office on the Democratic side in such influential positions that are able to continue to work on projects together and showing how governments can work together, as opposed to just only time they get together is during press conferences. So that's
Well, and to that point, Dustin, this is something I've given some thought to. My journey took me elsewhere, but it came back. Syracuse is a magnetic place. I think it draws people back in. It's good to see the rest of the world and get some of that experience, but it draws you back in. I know Emily Assey had a similar experience. Mike Green, who served for a long time on the Common Council, had a similar experience. There are a number of folks who have had those experiences of learning from the rest of the world and then coming back to put that to work for our community. And I'm really excited. We've got a crop of, young, excited people who are ready, willing, and able to take on big challenges, because we know we've seen a lot of places, we've seen a lot of things. It is really important for us that a community we want to invest the rest of our lives in is a good, healthy, successful community. We want to be putting in the work to build that foundation for years to come. So, we're really, really excited for the opportunity to say, hey, let's get to work. Let's get going. Let's make sure that we can have, a great, thriving community here that we can enjoy for decades and decades to come.
So now that you're in office, we said that you completed your 100th day now. What are some of the accomplishments that you've been able to do so far, and what are you looking forward to get it launching soon?
Well, my first 100 days in office, we got right to work. I've put out 3 reports. I've put out a report on AIM funding, which is state aid to municipalities, a report on parking tickets, as well as my annual report, which I've not been in office terribly long. I realize that, but there's a charter requirement. We submit an annual report by the end of March every year. So we went ahead and just did it because we're sticklers for the rules in my office. So first thing we did, we got in and we realized Syracuse has a difficult financial situation. We have a nearly $30 million structural deficit. So we took a crack at the AIM program, known as Aid and Incentives to Municipalities. That is a pot of money that every town, village, and city in New York, except for New York City, draws from. Syracuse receives $71 million a year from that, which on the surface sounds like a lot of money. But the program was started by Governor George Pataki in 2006 with a promise of annual increases between 2.5% and 7.5%. Those increases, the program was capped and then frozen by Governor Cuomo in the 2012 budget. We have not seen a single dollar increase since 2012. The cost of running a city has gone up exponentially since then. Syracuse's budget has increased about 23%, and that's not profligate spending. That's just the cost of running a modern American city. We have labor costs, healthcare costs, supplies, materials, all those costs have gone up, but our support from Albany has not. They've run into their own budget issues. I mean, there's there's $250 million for an AI program. There's $500 million for the Belmont racetrack, $90 million for a film studio that never really got any use in DeWitt, $800 million or something to that effect for the Buffalo Bills. No money for cities that provide firefighters, police officers, and infrastructure somehow. The math doesn't math to me. But, but we keep fighting for that because we need those resources. We absolutely need those resources. If we had kept pace with the promise Governor Pataki made to cities a little more than 15 years ago, we would be receiving between about $99 and $160 million this year. That would not only close the city of Syracuse's structural deficit, but it would also provide additional resources to help upgrade our infrastructure, build more housing, and make sure that we were on the right footing for the future. Our challenges are largely not of our own making. More than 50% of Syracuse's property is not on the tax rolls because of decisions made by New York State. One of the largest landowners in the city of Syracuse is New York State because of SUNY ESF and SUNY Upstate. So we need them to be a better neighbor, and we need them to contribute for the very expensive public services they use. And AMAID would be a great way to ensure that that happened. Second report we did, we called it Park at Your Own Risk. We're looking a little closer to home. How can we generate some more revenue and improve our street infrastructure? So what we did was took a deep dive into the parking tickets issued by the city in 2023. We've issued more than 62,000 parking tickets last year.
I'm starting to get PTSD. We're talking about parking tickets now, but
right?
But you were talking my language here with this, because I remember making these same arguments, when I was there. So go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Yes. We issued more than 62,000 parking tickets in 2023. And what we realized when we took a look at the data, most of the tickets were time-stamped, and we could tell the locations. Number one, they're not issued equitably throughout the city of Syracuse. Number two, even during pay-to-park hours, they're not being issued equitably around the clock. For example, we realized that more than 60% of pay-to-park tickets were issued before noon. We had no idea what the parking checkers did after that. I don't know where they went, but they weren't out writing tickets. So thankfully, we got the administration to commit to hiring an additional supervisor for the parking checkers. We're very excited about that. We've also made some recommendations for how to improve the overall administration. I think ideally, in a perfect world, parking is the red-headed bastard stepchild of city government. 5 different departments touch parking. That's unnecessary and ridiculous. If they all lived under the same roof, we would have a better focus, we'd have better results, and we'd have much better administration of parking. So that was one of our major recommendations. Consolidate those operations all into one place so that we can keep our parking going well, going strong, and use that as a revenue. And I am pleased to say, Dustin, your auditor is getting results. In March alone, we saw meter revenue go up $50,000. which we're
That's
thrilled.
great. That's great. That's
That's wonderful.
no,
We want to keep that going and make sure the city is getting everything that it needs because,
right.
as you know, parking is not just this jackass thing cities do to like get money out of people. We have streets are some of our most complicated infrastructure. What's on top, what's underneath. We need resources to keep that up and running. So, when you pay the parking meter, or if you fail to and pay a parking ticket, that money's not just going to make sure that, I get nicer furniture in my office. That money is going to make sure that we can pave the roads and we can stripe them accordingly and we can build out our bike lane infrastructure and we can have more handicap accessible signage. And we make sure that our streets are the best maintained in the country. And we absolutely need that across the city of Syracuse.
And parking isn't just about like parking tickets are not just about raising revenue too. It's about encouraging turnover of parking spots and not having people
That's
hang
safety.
out in the same spot. And that would allow people to come downtown and go to businesses. I believe me, you're preaching to the choir. I get it because it's so
One phone call I got about this I thought was fascinating. It was from a woman who lives on Dell Street, which for your listeners who are not familiar, that's kind of up in the Westcott neighborhood. It's a very small side street near some of the popular restaurants over there. And she said that on the weekends, people will park up and down both sides of this very, very narrow street. And I know Dell Street well because I petitioned on Dell Street. And she said, people park on both sides, they block the driveways. I can't get out of my house. Snowplows can't get down the middle of the road. You know, we can't get emergency vehicles down the road. God forbid there's an emergency that requires one, just because a bunch of people decided, okay, this is the closest place to park on my way to brunch. So, I think it's really important. These rules exist for safety. They exist for everyone's well-being. When we have alternate side parking, we need people to listen to that and respect that because it's really important.
so
So,
yeah. Well,
yeah,
we're
so
kind of getting towards the end of that half hour. And so I always like to end this on my favorite question, because I don't have to do any prep work for it, is what haven't we talked about? What is something that we haven't been able to talk about tonight that you want everybody to see?
how much time do you have, Dustin?
Well, how much you want to use?
Well, look, no, I think there's a lot. What I love about the job is that we can take on big projects and big priorities ourselves and run with them. In the next few months, I look forward to putting out my audit of permits and licensing. I'm working on a project about police department staffing and scheduling, and I think that's going to yield some pretty productive results so we can have more officers on the streets and fewer behind desks. We're going to work on a project about road reconstruction, seeing how the city makes choices and how they rebuild roads, because everyone likes to complain about the quality of our roads. It's hard to maintain roads in the snowiest city in North America. We ride our roads pretty hard up here. So climate change is not making that any easier either. Well, that's a big priority coming up. We're also going to do some work on vacant properties in the near future. And all of that's incredibly exciting. I'm really, really looking forward to those projects. Some big picture things we have going on in the background. A big focus of mine during the campaign and going forward in this office has been climate change. And I think that we need to have a good focus on trying to address the existential challenge that climate change poses. Some people like to say, what the hell does the city auditor have to do with climate change? But then we talk about it. How do we transition city vehicle fleets from gas cars to hybrids or electrics? Not every vehicle may be able to easily make that change, but Joe from the Parks Department who runs the golf courses and throws a bag of clubs in the back of a pickup truck or an SUV can probably get an electric car. That's probably pretty doable. I think the story I like to tell is that since taking office, the number one question I've been asked is, what the hell does the city auditor actually do? And everyone wants to know that because I don't think anyone has a clear idea, but I think we've made that a lot clearer to folks. We're here to kind of be the city's, you know, in-house think tank, kick the tires on big ideas, make sure that we are getting value for our resources, providing that oversight, providing good insight, using data effectively. And I'm really excited to do more of that. Now that people know what we can do, know what we're capable of, I'm really excited to keep growing the team in my office and focus on that next, wave of projects and the next generations of challenges that we have for the city of Syracuse.
Oh, Alexander, you're a fine citizen and a good friend and a great Democrat. And not all of that in that same order, but probably good there. But I want to thank you for coming on Zoom and Czarny. I'll throw up the links to your Facebook and socials. Please go follow him. He's doing incredible work. Whether you're in the city of Syracuse or just out of Douglas County, take a look at what he's doing, and because he's not just fighting for city of Syracuse, he's fighting for the heart of central New York, and that's going to just do wonders for all of us. So Alexander, thank you so much for coming on again.
Great, thank you so much.
And that was my interview with Alexander Marion, the Syracuse City Auditor. Next week, I was supposed to do this week, but next week I'm going to be doing my Zoom and Czarny with Marty Masterbull, the Onondaga County Comptroller. We had a scheduling conflict this week, so we're going to be getting that on the books for next week as well. My commissioner car on Tuesday will focus on the New York State budget, exactly what all those budget items that I listed earlier in this program will mean, and then the weekly walk coming this weekend, hopefully tomorrow, will be the wrap up of the April 2nd presidential primary, where I look at overall voter turnout and election day turnout. There's going to be some interesting things in there because it was a weird primary with the low turnout that happened. But check it out. You can always go to dustinczarny.com and subscribe. You'll get an email notification for all of my content, as well as election news that I post on there as well. Thank you very much and enjoy the rest of your weekend. Bye-bye.